So we will start. Thank you very much. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming. We'll start as usual with the apologies and reasons for absence.
Borough Councillor Mick Burgess has a clash of meetings, and Lee Phelan, our volunteer support warden, daughter is on the stage tonight.
Oh. And put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington.
And Alan is
preparing his report.
on his way.
He's expecting to be a little late.
Yes.
Oops,
There you go.
here we go.
Hello, welcome.
No.
Declarations of any interest, peculiar or other. Now we know Sue has got the outlook on.
11 May.
Yeah, right. Anything else?
No.
George on the village hall, maybe?
No.
Probably not.
No interest.
Right. Okay. So no applications to be considered for dispensation. Reminder to everyone that the meeting is being recorded for publication on the internet. Did it look as though it was
It
working?
looked as if it was.
Good.
Yes.
It is.
All being well, it'll be on the internet.
No guarantee.
We have, when it works, there's no notice on the door tonight in case it blows off. So I'll now adjourn the meeting for the public session. Firstly, we'll talk about the two planning applications as normal. Does anyone want to talk about Cuckoo Cottage Riding School and Livery, particularly in favour of it? Did anyone come on that behalf?
Yes.
No?
I'm here. I own it.
It is you?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. So do you want to tell us about what you want to do there, the pole barn colour?
Yeah, we've got a pole barn with a it's just a fabricated roof. We just want it to for the hay, really, for the horses, to keep it dry. Previous years I lost lots of hay because I couldn't keep it covered. We tried covering it to try and pull it, it flew off in the winds. So it's just purely for horse food, storage, hay, straw, ready for the horses. We need it.
Okay. Does anyone on the public side want to comment on any of that application? Or do any councillors want to ask any questions?
I'd make a comment just saying that it's barely visible from the road at this time of year, and in most of the year when the leaves on the trees it really wouldn't be visible at all, and it's not overlooking anybody and no one can see it, so I don't think it's...
Okay. So we'll get to that when we come to the item on the agenda. The second one is the Lordings Oast asking for change of use of agricultural land to allow the installation of an array of PV photovoltaic units to serve the residential dwelling. In other words, solar panels as we normally call them. Does anyone want to comment on that? And I don't think any of you have come from Lordings Oast.
No, I sent an email round, you can't make it.
Okay, right. Okay, so there's no one to ask any questions. Does anyone want to comment adversely about it from the public side? No? Okay, so we'll get to that when we get onto the agenda. Other things then on the agenda from the public session. I guess you want to talk, Sarah and Karen, about your sensory play area.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what else we can add.
I mean, apart from the meeting, isn't it?
Yes.
We've had the site meeting. It's really,
Yes.
at this stage, is seeing if we can now move forward and see if it does
Yeah.
get authorised to get it moved to Coronation Field. Then we know exactly what we're going to be fundraising for.
Yeah.
If it stays where it is, then we also want to replace the equipment there, because at the end of the day, we have all established that it is not really ideal for children of any age.
I mean, when the officer obviously came out, she did just, I mean, as Yvonne will know, she was there, I think the bucket, we sort of falling in a hole of sort of, she was come out and she was only dealing with new installations, so she sort of could only advise on going forward, and we were sort of saying about the situation and the look of what's going on and the state of it and stuff, and she sort of said, well, that's not really what and it was a bit sort of, wasn't it, everyone? It was kind of, well, a bit of juggling. She you know, and it was sort of like we were going around and we were pointing things out, and she did say, you know, these pieces of equipment are for older children and this is for younger, and the way it was laid out, she didn't really agree with the way it had been laid out, and she sort of said, you know, that's not how I would have done it. And but I mean, it's just because it's over on that boggy field, there was just no, at this time of year mainly, there's just no one over there. It's just
And it's not, of course, our area because it's housing.
yes, and that was it. Yes, they said, you know, the housing department would have to, you know, have a look into it, but then it's all sort of fobbed off, and you know, you're sort of down the back of the queue, and it's just sort of we're forgotten about again. So she did have lots of suggestions, lots of ideas, lots of advice, but it sort of fell a bit flat. Yeah, because we sort of were, it was sort of, you know, we kind of didn't really get any answers, or didn't really go from what we wanted to hear from her, really. So
Sure, it was.
yeah, it was sort of a bit, I don't know whether she was the right person to be sent out.
Okay, yeah, we've all had the notes you put in, by the way, so we've all had the opportunity of reading
Time
those
to read them, yeah.
Yes,
two
yes.
documents. Paul.
I thank you for the notes, by the way. They were really.
John's not here. John, Sarah's husband is the,
Yeah, well, they were very helpful indeed, and you also got a lot of time and effort in working there. I was a bit surprised, I might have misunderstood it, of course, that Ashford said that they didn't seem to say they got a parks department or what have you. And I kind of sort of did a little bit of research on that, and they do actually have, not saying they don't have parks departments, but they do have officers responsible for new play parks and looking at this, and there's quite a lot. I was surprised.
Yeah,
Nothing round here.
That's what Amanda is.
But in the borough, and of course, if you put in a new play park, then there is a responsibility that they have to do. So I think they're being a little bit disingenuous, trying to say, you know, it's only new stuff.
They're concentrating more on the new builds, aren't they?
I think for me the issues, and maybe they can't exactly be answered right now, but for me the issues are around if you move the location, then what happens to the old one? Because as a parish, we haven't got the resources to maintain two, and if the old one is not fit for purpose, we can't just sort of ignore it, if you like, and something has to happen. Maybe it's closed.
No, can I clarify on that? Ashford, because it's Ashford's, whatever we do, that remains as Ashford's play area, and will carry on as Ashford's play area.
Right, but would they upgrade it to the required standard?
No.
So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, but they won't. As far as they're concerned, it's okay.
Well, that's an issue I think as a parish council we can't ignore.
Yes.
That's the first point.
No,
So, you know, whether we move it or whether we, you know, to keep that, to support the keeping of that as it is, I don't think is tenable, because it would make a nonsense of the stand that we would take about having a proper one. And the other thing is that at some stage, the overall, and it's been made, points been made several times before, the long-term commitment of the parish council in terms of upkeep and maintenance, at the appropriate stage, it all needs to be costed out so that there are no surprises in the future. Because one of the fears I would have is spending a significant amount of money and getting up and running, and then being landed with the long-term commitment and maintenance. I'm not saying that's impossible, by the way, but I think we would just have to make sure that we were comfortable that we could afford it, or we could afford to take on that commitment.
I think this is, for me, somewhat speculative, but I think we can see the likelihood that this is the case. Yes, Ashford will consider new play parks. I'll come back to that in a minute. Yes, they have said at the moment that ours is by no means the worst, so it's not a priority for an existing play park. When it comes to the new ones, Ashford is a huge growth area, so they're getting S106 coming all over the place. And as long as you have, I sent that thing around from Sweden, and I was reading another article from a council, I think in Cambridgeshire today. As long as you've got new houses, and you can claim that the new houses need a new play park, you can devote the S106 money to the play park. If S106 money fell into our lap even, unless we can demonstrate that the new houses needed a new play park, new, not improved, not maintained, new, you don't get it, it's not eligible. So the woman at Ashford, while she's building new play parks, is building them in circumstances that we will never get into. And therefore we are, and I think this is where the two ladies have put their finger on it, we're in a bit of a catch-22. We soldier on with the one we've got, we raise money or the ladies do, to improve it if Ashford were willing to, with us, you know, or we do something different, or we go without. I just don't think, and at the moment they're not minded, as things stand, to go down any of those paths. So, as I say, I can't prove that, but I think that fits the facts as we know them, that scenario. Okay, one thing you have said in the notes, of course, is that you're minded very much to move to Coronation Field. You just talked about the existing one being Budley Field. Do you think Coronation Field is better ground?
The location of what we thought of where it was originally,
Yeah.
then it could go on the same route where the children might be going right across the field to get there.
Yeah, I think it's more of a central location. Lots of families, everyone will know where it is. It's central. It would look appealing. I mean, so many people, we've said this before, don't even know where it is.
Sure.
It's hidden behind that big bush. Even standing, from Jubilee Field, you look across and not a lot of people know where it is. There's no signage to say there's a play park up there. We're having new families moving in all of the time. And it's just, I never see any children over there using it, and it's
Because
just...
a lot of people think it's just for that part of the village.
Yeah.
It's not for the whole village. But I mean, we know all that.
We had been minded to put signs up, but someone told me just recently that it was a bad idea to put signs up to a children's play area.
Oh, please,
You know, because people get worried about it.
Yeah. I mean, we are mindful if it doesn't get to Coronation Field, then at the end of the day, what we've got, one, we could maybe do a path to. I mean, there's ways and means to improve what we've got.
Could be improved,
I think we've
but it's not
established.
the first choice.
No.
Okay, does anyone else have anything to raise on this in public session?
Just for clarification, ABC indicated that they comply with the current risk assessments. Did they indicate when the last assessment was undertaken?
Well, the report that I've got that I was going to bring up, under matters arising, I've got the report. It's dated the 5th of February last year. So there's obviously due a new one now. I saw a Spire vehicle out last Wednesday around there.
Well, I went over because the black that was around the horse,
yes.
and I pointed out to her that this is a trip hazard. I said this is really bad.
That's mentioned.
I've then gone and had a look, and it's like. I mean, I'm not a tradesman, but the job they've done is appalling. It's like a mastic gun. They've gone around with a mastic gun, and they've I've got a little video of it, and they've literally just gone through this like little gap, and it just looks terrible.
But they've bent it because it was higher,
so
they've bashed it. You can see where they've bashed it.
It's such a bad job.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're saying that's satisfactory, then. But I mean.
And the other thing, the one thing that they mentioned on the bit that they call multi-activity unit, which is the infant one.
Oh, yeah, right
it's
near the
infant.
hedge. Oh,
that one.
one.
Yes. The slide. The report came. The frame is showing signs of corrosion and should be descaled and repainted. The loose bridge bolts should be secured. So these are what they say. And according to the email that came with this from a Spire chap, David Hartley, I think his name is. That it has been, all those things have been done. But I've been over there today, especially for tonight. Nothing's been done.
No,
And the loose bolts, I took a photo of it. They can't actually, because Alf checks all those, you can't actually tighten it because it's rusted.
Yeah.
And but you can move.
I thought it was
the side.
But aren't the people who undertake the health and safety check part of Ashford Borough Council?
Oh, it's there, yes.
There's their officers.
Yes, there.
Well, the question was, are they secure and are they actually fulfilling their obligations?
I had a good go at it. I can't see a child pulling through it, but it is loose, but it's because it's rusted, bent. You can't tighten it. It needs to come
But
out.
you've had an indication that work has been completed?
No,
No.
that hasn't been
We're
done.
waiting on that.
That hasn't.
But they have been there.
They've been there. Whether they were doing their inspection because it was the
I mean,
right
there's
time.
only so much they can try and repair something that's old. It's a bit like my fence at the moment. It's died. it's got to be replaced. There's only
Yeah.
so many times you can fill it with mastic.
Yeah.
Right.
Surely it also begs the question, if they send somebody out to help look at it, they ought to send technicians out to look at it with a certain amount of tools with them so that they can do things immediately and save another visit.
You'd like to think so.
But that person doesn't do that anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
I think they're more concerned about their insurance liability than anything else.
Absolutely. Can I?
Should be.
We might come back to this. I realised I should have actually given Kate the opportunity to give her report, and then she can get back to police duties elsewhere.
Don't worry. Thank you very much. I've just popped along just to check everything's all right. Obviously, you're aware I can't come to all of the meetings. I'm hoping you're still getting the report, my monthly reports.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, this month we're in the middle of our knife awareness campaign, which we carried out for the last 2 years. Last week, I was able to go to one of the schools in Ashford and did 3 assemblies there, and also to Homewood. We've got another one at Homewood this week as well, because we can't do the whole school in one go, but we do half the school, and it's very well supported. We're using Robert again this year. He's an ex-gang member who's turned his life around. He was involved with knife crime, and the children really do listen to what he's saying, and it does work. On my newsletter this month, there was a bit about parents can come and to a free session. There's various ones being held. You just need to register. They're for 2 hours long. It is worth knowing what your children are up to. Obviously in this area there's not a knife issue. There isn't necessarily a knife issue in the areas that I do cover, but it's just being made aware. Kids at the moment seem to feel that they need to carry a knife for support. They've seen it on telly. We're just trying to, in this 3 weeks, advertise to them that it's not suitable. They can be in serious trouble for carrying knives. There's no need for it. Next week I've got cadets coming out with me Monday and Tuesday. Monday we're going to do a bit in Tennyson, but hopefully Tuesday afternoon we're going to try and come out to some of the parishes with them. So I'm hoping I'll do Wittersham and maybe Biddenden and some of the larger parishes. So you might see us around and about. I haven't got them for long, so we'll try and do as much as we can in that time. We've got, like our rural forum meeting that the parish councillors come to, Neighbourhood Watch, we're looking at doing a few more for the general public, residents and people like that. I've got one set up for Tuesday the 25th of February, which is literally a drop-in session, which will be 12 till 1:30. We're holding it at Tennyson Town Hall, but then we'll look at maybe changing that if it's popular to some of the villages as well. I've done it to Tennyson, but that's open to all the parishes, so anyone can come and attend those. If you've got any concerns that are happening in your parish that you feel that you can just pop in and see us, feel free. It's from 12 till 1:30 on the 25th, but I'll send you an email of Bond so that you can send it out as well. Chose Tennyson because it seems to be a central point for the parishes if anyone's in and out.
That's for people to drop in and just speak to an officer if they want to.
Yeah, it'd be myself and my sergeant's going to be there for this one, and we're going to see how it works.
Okay.
Because obviously we have all these parishes and we can't always get to your meetings, so we want everyone to have the opportunity if there's anything concerning them. Is there anything arising that anyone?
One thing that struck me while you were just talking, Kate,
Yep.
talking about knives and the fact that the children have these misguided views, although there's not a problem here at the moment, and it did just occur to me, because we've got the massive school at Homewood
Yep.
serving a huge area around here, you've obviously got the opportunity of contagion, so that if it gets into one village, it's a bit like the coronavirus, if it gets into one village, it'll be spread through all of them very quickly because they're all mixing in the same playground.
Right, so for example, last year when we did the knife awareness, in going round all of the Ashford schools, the secondary schools, and Tenterson, we had 8 knives handed in to us. This year we have had none. So the message is getting out there, and I know you've recently heard in the news about a mass thing happening the other week in Ashford. Kent Online, that was blown out of proportion. Don't always believe everything that's it was a very minuscule thing that happened, and it was involving just a few people. It's not an epidemic, so
Okay.
I don't want to frighten people because it's not out there.
Okay. Right, thank you. Anyone got questions for me
Not
while
today.
she's here?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Well, thank you very much for coming as always.
thank you, and I'll send you the details on that meeting.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you
Take
for
care.
coming. Bye. Right, anything else on the play area? Anyone?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not from us, I think we've said
Okay,
lots.
thank you.
Apart from the fact that Christmas party was
Yes.
it's huge.
Yes, yeah.
That's the pop-up pub here or a different one?
No, it was,
that
it
weekend?
was sort of part of that. We
Yeah, you
had a
had,
Christmas
you got
party on
£600,
Saturday.
was it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Which is
yeah,
really
for,
good.
for a 2-hour party,
I mean,
children's
it would
party,
take
I
you
think we
hard,
were
a
really
lot of
pleased
hard
with that.
work to get £600
Yes.
otherwise.
Yes.
Nocturnal sales.
Yeah, excellent, good. Good.
And they're looking forward to the next one.
Well,
Yeah,
we
we're
were
planning
with-
for Easter.
Yes.
But it won't be just for the children for the Easter one, will it?
No. Hopefully we'll see some adults do it.
They're all children, really, aren't they?
There's Easter eggs involved, so
Oh, well, right.
probably have more
What
adults.
can I say?
Does anyone have anything else to raise in the public session? Phil,
Just a couple of things very quickly.
please.
I had occasion to walk down the road out of the village, but coming back past Hillview Garage a little while ago, it was pouring with rain, visibility wasn't very good. There was a river running past one side of the road. And I would like to support Roger Parker in his observations on that sight line of that hedge there. I had to jump to get out of the way of vehicles coming by. It wasn't safe to walk either side of the road that particular time.
And the bit that you are drawing attention to is over where the fence comes out of Hillview, or the bit
Yes.
over by the other.
Where the fence comes out.
You've got a
of the hill.
slight
Yeah.
bend.
Bend
You don't
down there,
really
isn't
see,
it?
haven't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Walked
I
up
think
there.
it really is fraud.
It is.
Yeah.
It is potentially dangerous even walking up this.
Okay, all right. Yvonne's got a note of that.
And
Anything
the
else?
other
Sorry, John.
thing was, I was very pleased to see that Kent Wildlife Trust are offering their services free for planning applications, because I recall when there was the application for 40 houses up near Coombe Wood, to the back of Lloyd's, I phoned up Kent Wildlife Trust and spoke to their conservation officer, and he said, "Oh, really? Well, I'll go and have a look at that." So they're a very good organisation. They know exactly what they're doing. So I'm pleased to see it. That's all.
Okay. Anything else? from anyone? No? Right, before I close the public session, it's very nice to have Phil here tonight and Judy. Phil has spent at least 27 years, that's the exact quote, serving the village as tree warden, which is an honorary position. So he started in 1993, if not earlier.
As a sapling.
Yeah, got
I can,
Eating actually.
I can
First
remember,
class.
I can remember what I was doing back in 1993. Just about. It's a long time ago.
It's
In
impressive.
fact, I was talking to Nuala about it earlier. It's horrifying to think back to 1993. So you have been doing it, man and boy, obviously. The assessors that we get along each year from Kent Men of the Trees have often marked Phil's homework with the award of prizes to the village for the standard of our trees. And he's energetically endeavoured to help the parish council and householders to look after these sentinels of our status as an ancient settlement. And to mark this long record of service and success, the council has commissioned a suitably green presentation for Phil, which we hope Judy will allow him to hang on her wall. Here it is.
Toilet.
So, I should also add the council's thanks to Yvonne, who has lovingly made it.
Here, here.
Yeah, yeah. Well done, Brad.
Here it is. You're very welcome. Now you've just got to plead with Judy.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
Right.
Well done, Phil.
If you could
Yeah,
just
well
go
done.
over there, because I can't get you both in.
Where am I going?
Well, so I can get, I've got the back of Phil and the
Photographers.
front of you, and it's more important to have
Can't get the
the
side.
front of...
Photographers.
He wants to be a...
Oh no.
Thank you.
Smart, Steve. Good with the background.
Well done, Phil.
You know, I'm not sure how that's going to come out
I've
on
done that for
YouTube.
the last 27 years.
Well done, Paul.
I think there should be a book coming out.
Well done.
Root and branch.
Yeah, with the Wittersham trees.
Right, I shall close the public session then on that high note,
Leave it up.
What's this?
and we'll move on to the agenda proper. Now, because George has told us that he has to go early, I will shuffle one or two of the items around on the agenda.
Oh,
It's only 8 o'clock though, we've got some time. So we'll go on to matters of, confirm the minutes and do the matters arising anyway. And then we might jump ahead after that. So, did anyone have any comments on the minutes?
no.
No, very good.
No concerns?
No.
Okay. I can sign them then. Right, minutes are done. Let's do the matters arising because we get the play park update, which is the first half of that.
Yes.
Well, really, I
Subject.
have already mentioned that I've now got the whole, it's the insurance one, the one that was prepared for the insurance from Ashford, but it is dated the 5th of February 2019, so we should be getting an update, but I am going to take them up on those issues. We have also at the caretakers meeting, we agreed that Alf's has now purchased a bristle brush that gets attached to his equipment that does everything, and he's now got it, and apparently it is quite big, but it does mean that he can remove, hopefully, the moss that's all over all the areas are covered in moss. So if you can get that all off, that will help it make it look more inviting.
It's a motorised brush.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've started on that. It's very wet. I went and looked today, and it is extremely wet up there. But the whole everywhere is, from walking experience. So you're not going to get anybody over there at the moment. But I will take these issues up with Ashford, and if we can just get it as best as we can at the moment. Safety surfaces are old. They're not even half as soft as the ones you go to now. But so unless there's anything else that you want me to do,
Is there an opportunity for voluntary work to be done there? So if people decided to go and do some painting or cleaning up,
well, once again,
would they let us do that? Or
I don't know.
No.
I think that there's a danger of conflating the two projects.
Oh,
if you
yeah,
like.
sure.
And I'm not suggesting you were, but I think that what we have to do is recognise that in the long term, whatever happens, it's going to take some time and some money and careful planning. And by that I mean the facility at Coronation Field potentially. the one we've got has to come up to scratch,
Yeah.
and it's very disappointing that Ashford Borough Council seem to be basically abdicating responsibility, wriggling out, do whatever you want. I think we should set the standard, not them, because clearly they're not able to get up to it. It's not acceptable if it fails a health and safety or risk assessment. And I'd like to see the piece of paper that they say, no, this is absolutely perfect, it meets all the criteria, because if there is an accident or something, then we know, to put it bluntly, who to sue. Meanwhile, that standard, if we don't think that is acceptable, we shouldn't take that. We should raise the standard to what we want and set that criteria. And that might mean that we have to spend some money. And if they then say, well, you can't spend that money,
Because
then
it's ours. Because it's theirs.
yeah, exactly. But then that's a how can I put it, a battle to take forward, and that's when Councillor Burgess, we can work with him, and I'm sure we can find a way of getting it up to scratch. And in the longer term, you know, as the village expands anyhow, you're going to have a requirement for more than one location potentially.
Yes.
And so I think in the very near term, we need to get it up to an acceptable standard that we think is acceptable to the village, not necessarily just acceptable or passable. And to hear that they say, oh well, it's not as bad as the worst ones is
That's irrelevant.
It begs belief. I mean, you know,
I think that's more to the point.
it's like going to the
They weren't
doctor.
saying it was-
It's like going to the doctor and they say, well, don't worry, there are people that are more ill than you.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't them saying that it wasn't quite perfect, but it was okay. It was them saying it
It's
wasn't
just
bad
not
enough.
acceptable. And we need,
That-
we need,
yes,
we
the
need
right
to get on their
language.
case.
That's one reason why I went for the Bristol Brush to get it.
No, I totally think that's fantastic. Look, you know, but
They're
we need,
obviously not
Sorry.
planning to spend that money.
Did it come out? Which
No.
No, it's
I
just
just
dropped.
bought it. Sorry, I got the lead.
Oh.
I mean, who is the person at Ashford who is overall responsible for
Housing.
Yeah, but-
Housing office.
the housing officer?
Director of Housing.
Yes,
Director
I've
of
got.
Housing.
I know who it is. I've emailed her.
Right, but I mean, shouldn't we take issue with her directly? Because
I can, but that's who I went to in the first place, and she just passed it straight down the line.
I think
But
we
if
should use
we-
our
yeah, but I
borough
mean,
councillor.
if we insist,
Yes.
if we keep
right there, George.
Yeah.
what's
I
that?
think we
Use
should
our
go
borough
for a
councillor.
I
Yeah.
think we should use
Yeah.
the right
Yes.
councillor,
We
yeah.
may also have a crisp point if we don't think that was the Zurich insurance inspectors. I mean, not literally Zurich,
No,
but they
no,
employ
no.
someone. That was the Zurich thing that said you should do this,
Yeah.
and this. If we then get a piece of paper from Ashford saying, we've done this, this and this, whether we inquire for it or whatever, and we say, well, actually, you haven't, then that is an opportunity,
That's right.
because then someone more senior is going to say, well, I'm not very happy with that, because that looks like trouble on the way. Bear in mind also that the Chief Executive of Ashford was housing, as it happens.
Yes.
Yes.
That's her background.
I think all the work that all the parents have been doing in recognising and developing the situation, that we should support it totally and challenge Ashford Borough Council.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
When we get to the item 6 or 7, though, we also need to think about, while we have two issues and we have to cope with both, we also have to try and recognise that if we split ourselves down the middle on both, we're not going to do as well as if we are trying to be a bit more
No.
canny. We need certain things on both, if that's the way we decide. But if we're kind of never quite sure which one is our priority, we might keep tripping over our own feet.
No, but I
We'll
think
get to
what
that
Paul
point.
said about
Yeah.
whatever
We should still have the other one.
eventual
Safe.
solution we come to, it's going
Safe
to
and
take
well.
time.
Well,
Yeah.
We need something in the
safe,
imminent
safe and well.
Yes.
Yeah.
future.
Okay, that's
And in the written form.
played
Yeah.
up. And of course we've already had the notes, which I think John produced those notes at the meeting, which was very helpful. Okay, Great British Spring Clean Update, George.
Yeah, I've been in touch with Ashford Borough Council. I suggested the 4th of April to them, which is the first Saturday of the school holidays, and they've just come back to me this afternoon, luckily, saying yes, that's fine. We can borrow the equipment from them, and we can use that date. So I'll write something to go in at the Conoxney, which I think I'll just about be in time for the March one. So yes, that's all. Go
So-
ahead. 4th of April, 2 till 4,
2 till
based
4.
here like it was last time.
Okay.
Excellent, good.
Well done.
That's excellent. And they're providing you with all the stuff.
They're providing me pickers, gloves, stapler, fluorescent jackets,
Okay.
Couple of
goggles and helmets. And
Right, okay. Two items that are kind of matters arising to deal with very quickly that are not listed. One is that last month, to deal with it very quickly, I was asked to talk to ACRK about the Village Hall land registration, and we'll come to that on the agenda. And the other one was the concern about the cemetery being used for casual parking.
Yeah.
Alf has put a chain across the pathway that
That's
goes
right.
down, and he was, I don't know if it's got that far yet, going to get a sign that said something suitable to hang on it, partly because it's as good a place to put a sign as any, and partly because we don't want people driving into the chain and saying I didn't see it.
The chain's up, is it?
Yeah, it went up the next day, didn't it?
Yes, he did it very quickly. However, we have had somebody saying that we have always driven down there and we always reverse back. So the chain is such that you can take it off.
Do we want them to drive down?
Well,
and
the
reverse
problem
back?
is we've got disabled people, so
Sure.
we have to give them the opportunity to be able to get to burial plots.
So you need to think of how to get the sign worded correctly in a few words.
to discourage people rather than
Yeah.
prevent people.
We never said in that sense prevent, because we've got
No.
workers going down there.
Just go.
The problem is that someone one day will not quite reverse out, or they won't think of reversing out, or it'll be, well, someone
Well,
else
this
did,
is-
so I will.
This is
That
a
happened.
problem.
And sometimes, to solve one problem, you might have to cause another smaller one.
We said we let it run for a while, though, didn't we, and see how it went. Rather than, it's
Yeah,
only
I
just
think
got
I
on
think
there,
that's what we
really.
agreed, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
The gate at the bottom has been locked, so
Yeah.
we haven't
Yeah.
got
Okay.
not easy to.
And
Right,
had
okay.
the parking stopped at the top? The car that was parking in the...
Well, that won't be stopped by this chain. That's
But it hasn't been stopped.
Has
But
it?
has
Has
it-
it?
has it-
Has it
has it
stopped?
stopped? Has it
I
stopped?
don't know,
Yeah.
because no one's been reporting it, but it's at 7 in the morning. So typically we're
I
told.
saw the bit in Outlook on Oxney, which was very specific.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
The
bit-
article in
bit-
the Outlook on Oxney was very specific about what you shouldn't be going and doing there.
Yes. Okay, right, so that's matters arising. The planning applications then, the Cuckoo Cottage Riding School and Livery, who wants to talk about that?
I got the comments that George did, you know, it's virtually non-visible,
Mm.
and it's only visible because of the conditions of the winter. I would not oppose it at all.
Mm.
And whether, if it wasn't a livery stable, it would be almost automatic if it was a farm.
Yes, that's right, so I would not oppose it. I would-
Okay,
Serving a good purpose.
No objection.
so is everybody happy?
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll support that. Lording's Oast, the change of use of agricultural land to allow the installation of the array of the photovoltaics. I expect everyone would say, well, that sounds good, you know, it's a good idea to have renewable electricity. My anxiety was that if I understood it correctly, they're about 7'6" high, they're 27 foot long, 4 lots. It's well away from the house, and I'm just anxious about the visual amenity. Let's go back to our AONB. We have said in the past that when it applies, we think of it. It is on the sort of rolling, hilly bit there. I think you're going down the hill probably from the Oast at that point, from what I can remember when I went there once.
Facing southish, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah. I'm just, without being able to judge it, I'm a bit anxious that there is an issue potentially there.
Did you picked up his email?
No.
Oh,
I've seen his email.
email that
Yeah.
you circulated, and I certainly,
Okay,
yeah, it's
spot
part
on.
of a broader move to be completely electric,
Sure.
with the electric charging points, etc., etc. I have no objection to
It's
it.
not,
I
it's
support
not
it.
the idea of having the photovoltaics, it's whether they are a bit big and obtrusive in the wrong place, and I can't judge that.
Well, it's right down the end there, and it's
Well, you're in the direction of the countryside
yeah.
from there.
To my mind, it made a lot of sense. So I
Okay.
don't see any reason to object to it.
I think we're going to get
Yeah,
very
more and
used
more.
to them.
Yeah.
So, it's a better alternative.
Yeah. There are I mean, it's a
Burning
smaller
gas.
scheme. There are photovoltaics at the end of or the back of Island Cottage, but you can barely see them because it's a single row. They're only about this high off the ground, and they've got bushes.
Yes.
So, and of course, you can't cover high ones with bushes because you put them in shadow.
I don't have any objection.
There's also a lot of new builds, especially the council. I'm thinking the ones in Kennardington, they all on the roof of the houses.
Yeah.
So it's going to become a standard.
Well, that again
feature, isn't
is not like sticking them in the middle of the field 300 yards from the house.
No, but that's what you have to do retro usually. If you've got a listed building and you can't put it on the roof, you have to do something
Well,
like that.
Okay.
if there's any concern, I mean, he has suggested that an open invitation to visit.
I don't know.
Well, okay, what do people think then? I mean, if everyone's in support, then that's fine.
No
Everyone.
objection.
Under no objection.
So we are comfortable.
If we're not comfortable, then I suggest we visit. But if everybody else is happy,
Fine.
then fine.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the normal system,
Yeah.
so we're okay, we support it. Good, okay, thank you. Right, 8:10, we've still got time, I probably don't have to move things around. So to consider the offer from Ashford of 10 free tree saplings to plant in the parish. That is something you were considering. You're very welcome, you're very welcome to stay. You don't have to. The trees, the offer of the 10 trees to plant saplings of indeterminate species.
I can tell you what they are.
Oh.
We won't know what we'll get. We can't specify.
You mean we don't get a choice?
One or more of the following.
No, because
You can tell us what they're chosen from, not
Yeah.
what they are.
There'll be a selection.
How many options is there?
Right.
And what are they?
That's not that bad, then, is it?
Rowan stroke mountain ash, field maples, downy birch, English oak, European beech.
So I'll tell you what the difference between a rowan and an English oak is mega
Yeah.
in terms of where the earth you put it.
Oh yeah, in terms of how
Okay,
quickly it grows and
I
how big it's
think
going to grow.
we should. I know that we don't. It's a lucky dip, effectively.
Literally all sorts.
But I do think we should take advice of the expertise in the village,
You have done, haven't you?
and then make a request. We might not get what we request, but
No, we
given
can't
what
request. They told us we
You
can't.
get a
I've
selection.
asked because
okay.
I made
Okay,
the comment that not all trees are suitable for the
Precisely.
ground.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was told, I'm sorry, you would be kind.
You get what you get.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a bit too complicated for them.
Hornbeam would be much better than beech. Yeah.
But the
It's
the
a trading
downy
platform
birch,
for
from,
trees,
but
so-
Well,
the downy birch, I can tell you from today's outing when we went round because the survey that was part of it, I was very glad of our 2 tree wardens advised plus Dave Fletcher. So there were I had 3 offers. Well,
Goodness.
they volunteered.
They agreed.
And we went round and we spent an hour and a half outside in that wind.
Great.
And the
Evening, Alan. Welcome.
the birch that is on in the memorial gardens towards the sort of the bus shelter, that isn't a silver birch. That's a downy birch. So that's one of the options.
So
I can tell you that.
So does it depend what you get where you plant them? then?
It's going to have to.
Yeah.
that's right. That's
So
the
until
that's the issue.
So,
So-
until we know, we can't decide really.
Have we got a deadline?
Presumably you don't know anything.
Yes.
Yes, we have, haven't we?
Yes, it's
4th of April, is it?
No.
2nd of March.
2nd of March.
They
yeah.
aren't going to deliver, and they've asked for a delivery point, and I've had somebody has volunteered for them to be delivered.
Very kind.
That's
Yes,
very
that's why I
thank
said it was very kind.
Yes.
But what sort of place will we be putting them? Because we've got an awful lot of trees.
One of
Where-
So we found.
What are the suggestions? Are there any suggestions already?
Yeah, where they may
Well, I
go.
think not really. I think we need to find out what we're going to get.
You have to go on our
Thinking
land.
where are these 10
Very
trees
much.
going to come
That's
to?
the trouble. Yeah. Then
We
we've got
need
to
to
go on.
say
It's
the
just got to go on our
cemetery.
land.
The memorial garden, Coronation Field, those sort of places.
Yeah,
Looking
and
at.
the cemetery.
And the cemetery.
And cemetery.
Could put one in the triangle.
In the what?
Have to, the triangle, have to be a
Oh, I
very
see.
small one.
So we're going to wait and see what we get, and then
Actually,
be guided
yeah,
by the
yeah.
experts as to where we place them on our limited
Sounds
asset
Yeah.
base.
sensible.
Now that we've been
Right.
round, now that the tree wardens have been round, we know where all the trees are. They'll be able to give them some thought as to where,
Yeah.
where we
Good.
might be missing.
We ought to manage it somewhere, even if it's the bottom slope of the cemetery,
Yes.
next door to the other trees. In other words, we shouldn't embarrass ourselves.
No, I agree
Because
with you.
we did
But-
have, remember we had a flowering cherry that we were awarded and
Yeah.
the kids came along and
Correct.
Yeah.
wrecked it. So we have got a gap
Mm.
because we were filling the gap where the fence used to be, so you couldn't
Mm.
see Hillview Garage as
Mm.
you came
Mm.
into the Memorial Gardens. So,
So-
we've got a gap.
Did we come up with a figure then today about the number we've got?
No, I made a sort of a list. We went round and said what they were and how many, so I haven't actually had time
Oh, sorry.
since
Uh,
to...
The total
Oh, I
number, you
have-
mean?
Yeah.
Oh, the total. You know the total number. Yeah.
But there's 2 or 3 dozen there, maybe more. More than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Veritable forest.
That's what I was.
52...
52. Page 2.
52,
Yeah, but it's just fascinating.
47...
5
Don't you
dozen.
have to stupid.
70 odd.
6 dozen.
6 dozen.
Oh.
That's more than I.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
In the
Just on
parish.
a small piece of land.
Bear in mind, there's a lot in the cemetery.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's not including the ones in the cemetery, because
Okay.
no,
Oh,
because
because
I've already
we've got
got those.
Lexi's
There's
list.
loads of, yes. So the ones down between the old and the new
Yeah.
bit,
Mm.
I haven't, aren't
No.
within that because I've already got that.
Do they have to be planted on parish council land?
It has. That was
They
it.
couldn't be planted, for example, one in the school on the
No.
Sorry,
side.
we're talking about two different things. You're talking about the number of trees we've got, or
Yeah.
the number of trees that we're going to
Well,
plant.
No.
that was the one
That
we've
the
got.
trees
This
we've
is where
got.
we're gonna plant.
These are the ones we've got.
Yeah, and this is where we're
Plus
gonna plant new ones.
10 more.
Right, that's what
So
I'm
10
saying.
more
So
will
10
have
is
to
what
be-
we're looking at. Where
10
we're
more
going
will
to
have to be on
Not
parish
over
Yes,
council
yes.
land.
Well,
You know,
I'm sure
it
we
is
can manage
difficult.
that.
Knowing where they are, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was surprised that we had 72,
Mm.
excluding the cemetery.
So we're going to be over 100.
Yeah.
See the wood for the tree.
And of course, we have responsibility,
Yeah.
but not this list. And you didn't do churchyard, or you did?
No.
No, churchyard's not.
No.
No,
Because
churchyard's
we don't
not
have it,
covered,
but
no.
we have responsibility for them.
And the ethics of this is presumably to encourage people to plant trees in, for
Indeed.
Mm.
carbon
Yes.
footprints.
Mm.
And
Ash
Yes.
will want to be carbon neutral by...
Yes.
And it would be an awful pity not to plant them if we couldn't find anywhere to plant
No,
them.
no.
on Parish
Sure.
Council
Oh,
land.
we
Somewhere.
will.
So we ought to work hard on that, and we ought to find a solution if we haven't
Oh,
got that
definitely.
solution.
I don't see any reason why we can't. Just to put it in context, by the way, although these are hedge slips, not trees, but I mean they're the same if you let them grow.
Yeah.
I think I've got the number right. I just heard today that Tim Piper has just had volunteers in Stone plant 5,000 hedge slips. He's hedging everything he can
Oh, I
think
saw
of.
you down by the ferry. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's hedging everything
You
he
can
can get
think
to.
of. Mm.
Because
All
5,000.
that time taking out hedges.
do we know
Um,
why?
mm.
Has he got a grant for it or something?
Well, he might have done. That wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Mm.
But I'd cut the wind down, improve other things, get a tick in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's an awful lot anyway.
He took most of them out in the first place.
Excellent. 10.
So there's nothing else we can do with this at the moment until we see what trees we are
Yeah,
presented
but
with.
what I need is your okay
Yes.
that we want them.
Yes,
Today
is
yes,
officially-
yeah, I totally agree. Yes,
Yeah, we want them.
Is everyone all for that?
Yep.
yeah.
Good. Excellent. So that's item 6. So we're on now to the Sensory Play Area Campaign Committee. The question of the committee regarding future options for location on Coronation Field and related matters. Now, first thing is that the ladies did make it very clear in their notes
Yeah.
that it was Coronation Field that was their choice.
Yes.
We know that the existing ABC facility at Woodland View will remain as far as Ashford is concerned. We had a bit of a discussion in the public session, Alan, that you missed. They have mentioned the question of the integration with the half mugger. Now, my feeling on that was proximity rather than integration, perhaps, because presumably a child's play area is going to have to be fenced off again for the younger children. And the last thing you want is the half mother to be integrated with it. I mean, there's going to be enough trouble of the football
Balls
going
flying
over the hedge. The space availability and the location in Coronation Field is obviously a question. The acceptance of future cost and other obligations, where this to go ahead, is something that we're going to have to think carefully about. I don't think there's any reason why that means we should resign or resist it.
No.
I think it's just a question that we do need to recognise it. And then lastly, and we talked about this last time, and it's one of these things we can go around in circles in alternate directions, is the extent of the certainty that can be given ahead of firmer plans on either side. I'm totally sympathetic to the fact that the ladies need to know what they're pitching for, and they don't want to go out and try and raise tens of thousands of pounds without any certainty of what they're going to do. On the other hand, we don't have much certainty of what they can actually achieve either. So all I think we are, and we'll have a discussion in a moment, all I think we're aiming to do, or can do, is to improve on the situation of our last discussion so that they have a much greater degree of confidence that they are heading in the direction of a project that can be made to work subject to raising the money, rather than they don't know if it'll ever get anywhere. But clearly we can't say, well, you've got carte blanche to do anything you like on Coronation Field when we don't know what it is. And that contradiction is going to be impossible to resolve until we know more about their scheme, their drawings, their space. They've said about the same footprint as the existing one. Now, I haven't been over with the tape to measure them, but I did do a blown up Google Maps with a ruler on the screen and compared them. And it looked to me, broadly speaking, as though if it ran down north-south near to the fence of the houses, the back fence of the houses, and going up towards the adult equipment and coming down, it wouldn't go any further down than the half mugger, and it would fit in. The question only, the point you already made, George, is how close are you coming to the half mugger? You've got to give space for people to walk up and down, and you don't want the balls to come over too readily.
And it's a different age group as well.
Yes, exactly. But on the other hand, the ladies have already made the point today, they don't really want it down the far end because that's too far to go, it's outside again. And although I'm not averse necessarily, personally, to moving the adult equipment if that made sense, I think the adult equipment is better roughly where it is because the adults will be less likely to walk further down the park. But also the adult equipment is broadly speaking under the trees. So that's not the place to put the paid park either because all you do is get all the leaves fall on it.
Bird droppings.
And the bird
droppings. So, you know, I think that sort of place is the right one. And of course, they're only saying, well, think in terms of the current footprint. It can be longer and narrower or whatever.
Of course.
I think there are alternatives, maybe a higher fence, you know, a wire one, the sort of thing they put around, not tennis courts. They use.
So we're saying in principle, yes, we're happy to support.
Well, that's the question for us, really. That, I think, then brings us down to saying, are we comfortable with the idea of seeding a slice of Coronation Field for children's play area? Bearing in mind we've already got one. And I'm not taking a view on either of these, I'm just raising the questions. Are we willing to do that in principle at this point? Do we sort of think it can fit in there in some terms like that? And are we willing to recognise that this will lead us, if all falls into place, with an enduring obligation to look after a Wittersham Parish Council play area? Turn that all on its head. What's Wittersham Parish Council ever done for you, Romans or otherwise? Well, one of the things potentially could be not produce a play area, because that would be a multi thing. You know, it would be the ladies' fundraising. It would be probably some money from us at some point. It would be grants from wherever they could get them. But it would also be the obligation afterwards, which of course Tenterden Town Council have taken on with their big improvement up there. But they've just got a whole load of money from the council
Yes.
because they own the land. So that's there. I think that's what we're faced with. What do people think about it?
Well, as I said, I think I'm quite happy in principle to say yes, we're happy that they would use a part of Coronation Field. We don't know the detail of it. We can only know that once we know where we're going with it. And the same as for the ongoing maintenance, really, until we know what we're going to put in there. I mean, the good thing about new things is they don't need as much maintenance in the first few years, so it's we have an idea of what we're doing when we get to that point.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I would support it. Yeah.
Alan?
Likewise,
I'm quite with that. Obviously, the concern is the maintenance, but as Jill said, we won't know that until.
I think they've done a tremendous job to find the information out.
Yeah.
They have done. They want to proceed with it. I think we should support it, knowing what the potential things are in the future, but those potential things are unknown to us at this moment in time, so I would agree with it.
Sure.
I would support it, and I think we should encourage it.
I agree with everything that's been said. I might suggest, not exactly now because of the underfoot conditions, but it might be worthwhile once things dry out that we have a site visit with the people concerned and the parish, who can make it, and have a look at it and see, what are the options and what have you. Because the way I'd like to see it go is that come up with a couple of plans and ideas, and we can see how it fits in. Then you can cost something, and then you can work out the maintenance costs.
But I think
and put some structure in it.
But I think the next stage for the committee is to develop that and come up with some kind of plan, an outline plan, knowing it will be Coronation Field, at which stage we can make comment.
And of course also they can start, there's plenty of manufacturers around, start identifying samples of collections of equipment for this, that and the other, developing their concerns about the sensory side, which are closed book to most of us, and get sort of expected outline prices and installation costs in there.
The Clerk's magazine usually has some good at the back.
Has loads.
Yes, what I've been doing is I've been tearing out bits that I've seen.
Sorry.
After you've read them.
I think for the committee to move forward with the recognition from ourselves, by being able to put that in the local outlook, etc., will stimulate further, hopefully, further interest.
Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with what you said. I think the other point about the cost of maintenance is that we did agree last month or the month before to push up our council tax, which we did primarily because of the need to raise money for capital. But money is money, and it's just as much that it gives us a bit more comfort of picking up maintenance costs.
But again, that's one of those things that if you're asking to raise the precept, you can say, because we've got a new play path, then people can see why it's being asked for, can't they?
Indeed. I mean, we have to remember that the fact is that on any basis, we're only a small village, and therefore whatever our precept is, we never get that much money in. We actually build capital by saving it over several years. Trouble with maintenance is if it's an every year obligation, you don't get that far. But certainly we should feel more comfortable about some expenses.
Okay.
So I think we're all in favour of that. That's unanimous. And I think Paul's idea about getting together on the old site and the new is sensible when the weather improves. And let's move on from there. Or let them move on from there.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye. GDPR. Implications of the web accessibility and all that stuff.
I mean, I obviously can't talk about your workshop you went to, but Yvonne and I did speak about it, and I don't know if any of you looked on the Information Commissioner's website. There's a lot of stuff on there. There's the Parish Council resource pack. So if you look in there actually says six steps, and we're confident that we're meeting all of those, bar one. And our only really weak link is the fact that each of us use our own hardware. and that's the only thing they do mention. That's one area where you could, if we were keeping information that was that needed protecting, we would be a bit susceptible. In fact, we're all going off with our own. So it may be at some time in the future we need to look at the parish council supplying tablets for each of the parish councillors that are only used for parish council business and are password protected, etc. But other than that, we're happy that we're meeting everything. We don't keep that much information anyway, and the only information that Yvonne keeps in detail is the burial information, which she's allowed to keep anyway. So.
Maybe in the meantime, you just issue a one-pager to slip into the parish councillor's handbook that talks about the whole BYOD. You bring your own device, and these are the things you need to follow.
Yeah.
Because then it covers the parish council, and it's up to the councillors then to have the appropriate anti-spyware and malware on the machines.
Yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there was a breach, I presume our parish council insurance would cover us individually, providing we took reasonable precautions.
We've got Satsuma, which is what we pay for
Yes.
That's
Yes,
why
well,
I get stuff coming through, which I share with
Excellent, thank
George,
you.
so that's what we pay for. And the other thing that, the first bit that was the web accessibility, and it was a very good presentation, but our website is one that is known to be good and got all the things that
compliant do.
Yes. Although I did have trouble getting the agenda on it, so it was online.
It's so secret.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Finalising Village Hall Wi-Fi project.
Right.
The router needs to be permanent and out of reach. Now, George pointed out before some of you got here that he's put a socket in.
Put a socket on the beam at the end there now.
And he will move it up permanently to go on there in a little box.
Yeah, I was going to do it this morning, and Alf pointed out that perhaps it needs to be in a wooden box, not a metal box, obviously. A wooden box, so it can be protected, but still meet its
You can put danger high voltage.
something like that.
He was looking after your interest.
Okay.
You know where you live.
So that's moving forward.
Good.
It's got a 13 amp socket which has been put on. George tells me on a new 13 amp circuit because it can't obviously go on the lighting if it's got 13 amp. The next thing then is the use of the router stroke access to password. Now, we've had this discussion here before. We never really got to the bottom of it. George, I know, has expressed the view that it was only provided for the parish council. I think some parish councillors at least had the idea that it would be more widely available for the use of all users, because that is an advantage to people who come here, and obviously we're trying to support that, although it's up to the village hall how they hire their hall out. I've spoken to Steve Schuregger because he organised the thing. He's looking into his file to see what the usage limit of the monthly subscription is. He thinks from memory it's 15 gig, which if it is a lot, although it's still usable. I've also suggested to him on someone else's suggestion to me that I think people have asked before, what about if it's being misused by people, downloading stuff that could cause issues. We think it will be possible to put parental controls on it using the admin password, in which case it either does knock that out, or if it didn't knock that out, at least there's been reasonable efforts made.
Yes.
We don't know what happens if or when the usage limit is exceeded. He thinks it probably just stops working. Now, if the password was given out more generally, there's always a possibility that Yvonne wants it on the, some date of the month and it's already been used up. On the other hand, I suspect it probably won't be in the honesty.
What I was suggesting was that we run it for a period of time, say 3 or 4 months, and see how much we're using for our meetings.
Can we see that?
And then, and then we can see.
We won't use anywhere near.
No, and then we can see what we've got.
The reason that on my phone I've got a 6 gig package, which is unlimited calls and everything, which is £10 a month. And I end up using. They now written to me saying, "You sure you need this much?" I think one of the things that a lot of village halls do provide that facility now. I think what we need to have, and this is my advice to the village hall people now, is there needs to be a fair usage policy that's included in the terms and conditions of which you sign up to when you book the place, and that gives the responsibility of the user. I think I don't think you're going to get many people attending the Tuesday coffee mornings who are going to be downloading movies, which is the thing that eats
That's
it.
British Legion, that's the problem.
Well, 15 gigs, that's a hell of. We're not going to start.
Not if it's 15.
I think
About 1917, they might put that on.
most of them were in it. But I think that putting in a fair usage policy covers us for that, and then we run it for a trial period, and people to book the hall, can get issued with that, and then
the other thing is
we can always turn it off.
The other thing we should remember is that you can always change the Wi-Fi password from the
Absolutely.
password.
Yeah.
So if it gets out of hand, you just change it.
And to me, I mean, that's one of the issues that, every time someone uses it, if you give them access to that password, they can continue to use it even when they're not using the village hall, because they could be walking outside or parked in the car park if that's what they wanted to do. I know, but theoretically they could do it. But
I don't think we've got that many.
We don't have to keep changing
Silver Surfers.
So I think it would be.
We're a long way from the right.
I think the best way is to run it for ourselves for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, see where we've got to, and then we can experiment for, say, another 6 months, widening the scope, and then see where we go.
All right. Okay, good. And you'll finish getting that up very quickly now.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Not now.
That was a question, not an
Not
introduction.
getting it up now.
That was a question mark at the end.
We thought it was a command.
It's like came across that, isn't it? There were no icebergs ahead.
The land holding update. Now this is where I was asked to talk to ACRK, so we're back on Village Hall again in this context. I did speak to Keith Harrison eventually. I did then speak to Jenny something. It's Jenny, isn't it?
Bradbury.
Bradbury. A bit later. She did clarify the thing that I was worried about last month. We have only been the custodian. She's got a good file there. She's got a good memory of us, and she's got a good file there. I mean, she was able to pull out the 1905 or something land transfer, or the 1925 land transfer straight away. She said, "Oh, I better put that at the front of my file." The PC has only been custodian trustee since 1995. Originally, the land was transferred to, from what she could see from a quick glance, it was transferred to individual trustees to hold it on behalf of, and they got the village hall built and everything else. And then it was with the official custodian of trustees, and it came to us from them in 1995, which is what I saw in the current governing document. So she's obviously she's neither a lawyer nor a land person, but on the other hand, she deals with village halls a lot. She felt that, as I suggested, that we've got a charity commission document that says that we're the thingy from 1995. That really should be enough.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
They can always find that probably on the Charity Commission website, which will be a sort of a proper copy, as it were. So she doesn't feel that we ought to have to declare anything before that, and we'll need to revise the thing that the lawyers have been to and froing with us. The trustees are individuals, and George, there was a bit of confusion when we were talking about it, because there's you down as a trustee and there's Wittersham Parish Council, which says Wittersham Parish Council is not a trustee.
No,
shouldn't be listed.
Shouldn't be on there.
All the
I think
trustees.
it's confusing because they saw it before as the person was representing rather than.
And she said no, that's not the case. So we shouldn't be listed. Jane Neame should be listed because she went on, but she isn't yet. She says, we were talking about the user groups, she said they should all be listed and they really should be pressed to provide their trustees. And we had that discussion at the AGM, but my feeling is it's just got to be pressed. The land registration document, she says, should somewhere say held in trust for. Now, I don't know how, that's up to the lawyers to think about, but she says it really is important because that's what clarifies that we are the custodian trustee. we're saying that we've owned it and all the rest of it, but then we get into the original declaration said that Yvonne would sign that, we've always looked after it, which we don't, and we've always thought we owned it, which we don't, and so she did suggest that the lawyers should understand charity law. Well, the trouble then is that if they're charity lawyers, they won't do conveyancing so much. So anyway, we know more than we did. Now, the other thing that I think is very interesting for you, George, Jenny would be very happy to come, so she hasn't been for some time, very happy to come over, meet the trustees, go through your documents and say, oh, you ought to this, you ought to that. I don't think they charge you, for...
I think we should get that as members.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
She says very happy to.
And also,
She's been involved in the past.
Yeah, I grabbed that opportunity quickly because
she's
how can I put this? She's not going to be there for the next 25 years, and her time and hours are limited. Well, no, but we should grab the opportunity.
Okay. Well, she was very willing.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started talking about it, she knew the hall, she remembered.
Yeah, I've had a couple of meetings with her before. Yeah.
Good. Well, she's happy to come over and talk to all of you.
What happens to a trustee if, in the unlikely event that the village hall goes into, say, serious financial deficit?
You're liable.
Yes, that
was my point.
I asked her about the ICO, I do mean ICO, something like that, something charitable organisation, which George was looking into when he first went onto it, and it's been ruled out since on grounds of cost, George has said, which is true, it does. She said, what she said to me, and I don't claim to have my mind around all of this, she said it doesn't provide the benefits that people think.
No.
The trustees are still liable, she said, and I said, well, that's the problem, that's what we're trying to overcome. And she said that is dealt with by insurance, and that in her 25 years she has never known any problems.
No. And the issue is, but if you act properly, you're not liable. If you act improperly, the insurance doesn't cover you anyway. So
depends what improper is.
Well, that you don't do what you should, you do something illegal or something like that, then obviously the insurance isn't going to protect you anyway. So.
Yeah, but if you didn't do it, this is always a problem. If you didn't do something improper, it wouldn't be an issue.
No.
It's the insurance should cover you for certain areas of things that weren't as they ought to have been. Like, for instance, your car insurance pays out when you had a crash, even though you shouldn't have had it.
The only reason I ask that, really, because in Kent, and as in every county, there's a thing called the local medical committee. And about 20 years ago, they were taking on new premises in Harrietsham. And I was a trustee, and I remember taking legal advice. I said, what happens if the local medical committee goes bottom end up? To the tune of several £100,000, and the legal advice I got was that I'm afraid as trustee you would be liable. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I resigned.
No, I understand that. That's why I was very interested in what George was doing earlier. I think this is maybe this is an area where the village hall would do well to go and get direct advice from charity lawyers.
Yeah.
And there are some around.
I would suggest you raise that first of all with Jenny, because the fact
Jenny
is there are over 300
answer.
village halls in Kent that are members of ACRK, and they'll all have the same situation, and then throughout the land.
Some are limited liability companies.
Well, I think some of them they run that. They run those at the annual village hall conference.
I've said what she said to me, broadly speaking. I didn't know quite where that gets us to, other than that insurance covers it. George has then said, well, insurance doesn't cover it if you do something wrong, which is a bit like insurance covers your car unless you hit something. And Alan has put his point in.
If you're negligent as opposed to doing something wrong, that's the difference, really. So.
Well, it's a bit like professional indemnity insurance. If you prove your liability, and
I think seeing Jenny will probably clarify most of these concerns.
I say I've met with her a couple of times before about issues, but I'm quite happy to invite her.
Well, Alan raises a fair point, and I can understand that trustees should be cautious.
Yeah, sure.
And you should check your insurance.
You don't want to throw it too much at because they would run a mile if you did.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that is the land thing, and Yvonne and I have got to get back to that other document again.
Jeremy, thank you for finding all that.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you. So that's the land holdings update.
Fantastic.
That's the land holdings update, and
good.
we're getting nearer to the end of that, hopefully. Correspondence outlook, the request for a donation, the usual amount towards
Yes.
the cost of publishing.
Could we, here's a thought, we're going back to what the Romans do for us, or to use your phrase, could we have somewhere on the magazine that this is, proudly supported by the parish council, or, there's something that allies the fact that when people see the magazine, they realise that we're putting parish council funds behind it.
It's on the front page.
Is it? Right. There you go. I told you I'd ask
So
the question just so soon I could raise that.
Do you know what publication we're talking about?
I think to be
So-
fair, Sue's right.
Neil.
Sue's right, but it's in the block that no one ever reads. Maybe if it, where at
Yes,
the top right
yeah.
hand corner it says 50p,
Yeah.
which is kind of for not other people. Even if it said 50p paid by parish councils for residents or something like that, it could be clearer. Mind you, there are some of them that say, I wish I wasn't paying my council tax, just so you
another
get
can
the
of
outlook.
worms, won't it?
Especially the ones who don't get it delivered.
Well, they wouldn't be able to see it then.
You're right.
So what are we saying?
Well,
Maybe just leave it as it is. I'm thinking of George's
that's
care.
easy, we'll leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes.
So have we agreed this amount of money? Can I have
Yes,
a motion?
yes.
George,
Yeah.
second to Leslie, all agreed, except for our
After this.
abstainer. So,
Whatever.
okay, for, I've done that one, we're doing very well actually.
Yeah, keep going.
Kent
Just
Wildlife
keep
Trust,
going.
we've already heard this from Phil earlier, and I think that's potentially very good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Definitive map modification, the order has now been confirmed. This is the one of the path that was in the right place, but the map had got it in the wrong place, that goes through Swan Street to
Yeah.
the Wood Meadows field.
So it's
Working Party reports, caretaker, we have a meeting.
We do. We do.
Yes, and George came too. That sounds like the title of the book. Is there anything exciting to report?
No, I just to put the various issues were
Yeah.
discussed. What he was at.
Like on that broom, the motorised broom.
Yes.
I think generally we were pleased with the work Alf was doing
Just
around the
the
different
ones as
villages as well.
I had a site meeting with him at the missing manhole cover of pretty exciting.
Has it been found? Has it been found?
Right, the monthly transaction statement, including the caretaker, we've got this given out.
Yeah.
Looked at it.
please sign.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it as well.
Do you want to explain the last entry?
I just waited to see that anybody was going to pick it up.
When there's the
say-
Nicaraguan rebels,
Contra,
30
yeah,
years
Contra.
ago, the Contras.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Has
think
George
a bit
accepted
extravagant at the Christmas.
Yeah,
Meeting
something very,
refreshments.
something very odd happened
Cut
there.
back there a bit.
George banked it
In April or something.
in April, and it cleared the bank in December.
So
So
by
having-
then we thought it had already expired and I'd
Yeah.
forgotten to bank it. So Yvonne had issued me another one, which I banked on the same day, and that came up straight away.
So
And
that's
the other
gone
one came
through,
up
so
after it.
both have
Oh,
gone
I see.
through.
So I'm having to pay money
So
back.
he-
So
Yes.
So they do recognise you're alive now, George.
So why is
Really?
it minus £72 to cancel the contract?
Well, it has to in my books. I've got
That division
Balance
of the
it.
book.
there
That was
because
the-
I've already
everything
put
that
it there to
generated.
cancel there. So otherwise,
So we're charging ourselves a third time.
well, it will come back and forwards. And
Yes.
then it
I've got to pay it in. Once I've paid it back in,
Back
then
in,
it'll
then
come
it-
out.
Ah,
Yes.
coming again.
Watch the
You
space.
see,
I
this
think
is
we'll have to be a bit careful on this one. Do you want to sign this?
I don't have to pay back. That helps.
What was the bank's excuse?
We haven't got that.
Oh, that's
I've got one.
Yeah. I paid it in using my phone. You take a photograph of the cheque and you just
And who's that with?
pass it. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we
The
signed it.
caretaker one is a subset anyway.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know.
Right.
That.
Okay. Planning, we've done the two
Yeah.
applications. We've had the decision on the Lordings Oast greenhouse, which was granted. Highways.
Can I ask, while we're mentioning, I missed it, that on the earlier concept of Cuckoo Cottage, the retrospective hay barn, did we have anything to say about that?
It.
We did
We're
we?
quite happy with it.
Yeah,
And the lady came.
excellent.
She did.
I mean, she's a bit naughty, but then
Yes, yeah.
you know, it's a local rural business which we want to support. So,
Yeah.
but it's a bit naughty.
We'll ask her to open
Well,
up the
they've
footpath
been
then. shall we?
badly advised evidently when I was talking to her. Someone told them they didn't.
I found a map with that on it online. The footpath.
We didn't say don't do it again.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
We did not
Weren't
on
that
this
brave?
occasion.
I'm surprised. I thought.
You missed that
It
last
was-
anyway.
Sorry.
Okay.
We said if you want to take it up with anyone, Alan will be the man. Alan seemed very happy with that.
Right. Come on, let's not waste that
Yeah,
time.
no.
So highways is next. Anything?
Well, we could say
The
that.
only,
we
the only
couldn't
thing
wait
I've got, which is probably not for us, but more for KCC, the lady at Tile House. Is it Tile House? No.
Could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
No, that's
the house or the owner.
The house, not the
The
house. Approached me the other day and she was really concerned because the water runs down the
Yeah.
road there, and every time, I don't know if you've seen a van or a car goes by, it splashes halfway up the tree and
Tree.
right across their garden every time.
Yeah.
And so I said to her, well, if I was you, I'd get onto KCC because there are a couple of little potholes, they're only tiny, but they're long, but so the water just puddles there. But I should just get onto them and see if they'll do something about it. But basically, it's just the water running down the side of the road. You can't do much about it, I don't think.
An awful lot of it.
Yvonne, after your kind contact with Highways with the pothole in my drive, it was done within, I think, almost 24 hours. They're terrified of you.
And
Oh, we
they
thought
did
it was
the one
you,
in the middle.
It
Must
was
have been at
listed
the
as a
same
medical
time they did
emergency.
Alan's, the one in the middle above the front corner.
No, that wasn't no, because I was...
the ambulance.
They didn't put up traffic lights though,
Yes.
did they?
Well,
Well, they must have done them very quick.
It was. I went to Jeremy's and the hole was there. I came back from a
And
meeting and
yes.
it was gone.
That's exactly what I
That's what they
thought.
did.
But it wasn't the same because I got worried that it wasn't going to be, they'd missed it because they did have it, but not that one. However, I think they needed traffic lights for it, so that's why
Yeah.
it
A
was
man
off.
standing with a paddock,
Yes,
probably.
I
They,
think.
they did it pretty quickly.
Yeah. And also they've done the ones in Lloyd's Green which didn't actually mark. I reported it, didn't mark them, but they've still done them. But I have got 2 more that I've got to report, so it's an ongoing thing.
I'll be back.
Right. Public rights of way. I sent out a thing from the Times today. That you may not
yeah,
have seen
that
that
is,
yet.
yeah.
The Kent lot, the PROW people from KCC are coming to the next CALC meeting
Yeah.
to talk to us about getting things about pros on neighbourhood
Yes.
plans.
Mm.
Now, that caused a bit of confusion. We're not sure that neighbourhood plans are really the issue, but we think the underlying point is they want to get them all, reported because time's running out.
Yeah.
And they haven't got enough time anyway, so then there'll be a problem doing them. Anything else on pros?
Apart from we're 8 inches deep in mud every day.
Yeah.
Open spaces?
Wetter and wetter.
Alan? Leslie?
I don't think we've got anything new, have we, Leslie?
I just say wetter and wetter. I mean,
Yes, a lot of wet open spaces.
wetlands.
Wetlands, the word, yeah.
Cemetery and churchyard. We talked about the chain
Yes.
and the path.
Just that obviously in between meetings the elder tree has been...
Yes.
You've done a
And
very good job, actually.
Yes,
Mm.
yes they did.
Yeah.
And they were very quick as well, they quoted really quickly.
And it's been paid for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, do we have a sort of latest estimation of the completion of the cemetery extension?
No.
No, not yet.
Is it anticipated to be this year, or is it going to go on to next year? Do you think?
This year I would think.
This year.
Yeah.
When it dries
Yeah.
out. That's the issue.
It's got to dry out, hasn't it?
Yes, everywhere's.
Okay.
Okay.
But yes, but the tree, and I think that Gamlins were very pleased after this last weekend.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to be able to sign it off.
Sure.
It went. But we do have now, actually under open spaces I suppose, that the trunk of the willow tree that was taken the top
Bob,
off
yeah.
a long time ago, because Phil at the time wanted the trunk kept for the insects. But when we were looking now, you can push it, almost push it over.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask Al to remove that.
Insects
now
have done their
because
job.
it's-
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Also cemetery and churchyard, just a matter of information. I had a call just before I came here tonight from the chairman of Rolvenden. They've still got an open churchyard, but they're running out of space, so they're not responsible for it. And they've just been left some land next door for burials, so she wanted advice on being a burial authority and a cemetery and all the rest of it. Now I've told her obviously that Yvonne is the main source of information around here, and perhaps you might. I know you said she didn't get the last one. I will confirm again the email address, but you might just want to send her an email with your phone number on it and that.
And your rate card.
Second, I said about
an account.
Yeah. Second, I said that there are CALP courses. Occasionally, there was one just very recently. I said that thirdly, she really ought to beat a path to ICCN, which we found, which for about £90 a year gives you access to a specialist helpline. And she said that was very good, and she'll be jumping on that. She reckons she's got a few years before it runs out, and I said, well, be aware it will take you a few years to do it. So, and it was really handy. But the only thing they've got to do is to confirm to the executors of the lady who died that they will be putting the land to use as a cemetery.
Right.
But they've just been left that. So there will be another parish council then that is a burial authority in a few years' time, because they're a bit thin on the ground. Date of next planning meeting, well, we don't usually have. Date of next parish council meeting you got. Items for information. Alan, your conference report.
Oh yes. Well, thank you for asking me to go, because it was, I say, very interesting, and John Rivers was chairing it and was a very, very good chair, and he saw me as I arrived and welcomed me, and I sat with the chair of New Romney Parish Council and a couple of the Appledore parish councillors, and there was, I say, the quality of the deliveries was, I thought, excellent. Do you think I could borrow a pair of reading glasses?
Very focused, so there's something in there.
Are you having difficulties, Alan?
I can't read my own writing. I think it's even worse.
No one else ever could.
It's almost like you're a doctor.
It's getting personal now.
A chap called Jonathan Owen, National Perspective on Health and Wellbeing. There were various. I mean, I just made a few notes which I might just quote to you. Important for parish councils when they're considering building projects to fit with the needs of the neighbourhood. Only 30% of our population is represented by a parish council.
30% of which population?
Of the nation.
Nation.
I thought that we've seen rather higher figures than that.
But that's what he
Mind
said.
you,
I was
cities,
yeah.
Cities tend not to be.
Indeed,
So that's the big
indeed.
thing.
So only 30% have a parish. Yeah, I mean that was I struggled to get my head around it, but that's what he said.
Well, Ashford never was, but now two parts of Ashford have gone parished.
Children with access to parks and open spaces have much less asthma and are less likely to miss school, which I thought was relevant for us just at the moment.
Absolutely.
Public conveniences are closing at a huge rate of knots because they're expensive, and parish councils have to pay business rates.
Indeed, although the government is supposed
They're
to
looking at
fix
that,
that.
aren't they?
Yeah. He was advocating something that we've considered here, welcome packs for new residents. He felt that was very important. And things like dementia-friendly communities with project managers are very much in vogue. There's the Capel Le Fern down near Dover. They run a volunteer service for dementia support. They have 17 volunteers going for 3 years. You need to be DBS checked and so on, but they're happy to give tutorials if any parish councils want to dip into that. And going on, a chap called Lord Patel. Have you ever heard of Lord Patel?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are several Lord Patels.
That's true. That's true.
He wasn't the one I thought he was.
Wasn't he?
No.
Lord Patel of?
He's Lord Patel. He's Lord Patel of Bradford.
Bradford, yes, that's the one.
And he's done everything.
He's
done everything.
Lady Scotland's PR man.
Yes.
Right, yes.
See?
And he was emphasising all sorts of things, but communication basically with parish councils and workforces and looking after the staff. I wasn't really sure where he was going and coming from. It was
Bradford.
possible. There was a chap called Matthew Scott who was the Kent Police and Crime Commissioner.
Yes.
Do you know about him?
Yes.
And he gave a very
He's very
sharp, very good, very
He's
sharp.
perfect.
He's on the ball.
And I mean, one of the things that struck me, he had this video of a college or a university, I think, where there was a good-looking young man who was writing notes on a desk and then going home, and then he came back. Somebody had written an answer, and it was clearly a girl.
Yeah.
And so there was this relationship developing, and he would write a note, but he didn't know who she was. And you saw him walking down the corridor and looking at these girls as they went past and thinking, could it be her? Could it be her? You know, and
We've all been there.
yeah, indeed. You still do, right? Is it you that scratches your name on the pew at the back of the church?
George was here.
Anyway, and then there are a couple of moments in this video. One is where he gets back to the library, about to write his note, but then there's a big notice saying closed for the summer break. And he said, oh, God, I missed it. I never found out who she was, and now I'll never know. See? But then something else happens, and somebody opens the book, and he sees the writing, and he recognises the writing. So they suddenly get together, and there's a sort of there's a flash moment where their eyes meet, and everything's going to be all right, and everything's going to be fine. And just at that moment, the door swings open at the back, and a terrorist with a machine gun marches in. So this is it's sort of this shocking type of tactics. But it was it was, I suppose, what happens in America. Let's hope it doesn't happen here.
So this is what you had to look at.
But having said that, that's what stuck in my mind.
I'm sure the chap thought about it in church.
That's what stuck in my mind. But it was a very good point.
Was it well attended, Alan?
Yes, it would. I mean, I'd say 150.
150.
Yeah, I've gone on long enough. I won't say any more because I've gone on long enough. But it was worthwhile.
Thanks very much.
It's entertaining.
And you can have your glasses.
Take twice a day.
Well, you almost got to the seaside.
Indeed.
And just hope someone finds your note.
I scratched underneath. And
Well, you've got an unplanned film entertainment.
Well,
And a film.
Once we finish. Oh, yeah, when we get there. Yeah,
Well, I saw that.
yeah, you're right.
But yeah.
Okay, thanks, Alan. So, other items of information. George?
nothing from me.
Alan?
I only wanted to bring up that email you kindly sent around about the Small House Road and the buying up all those houses and demolishing them and so on. I mean, that's quite scary, really, isn't it? But no, it isn't. It's just it's not our business. It's
The one up at...
The one at the top of my test scores.
I mean, I know all those houses. I've been into them all over the years, and not recently because the home visits have gone out.
Some still alive.
Yeah. But it's just extraordinary to think of it, really.
Right. So,
No.
having said which, of course, they want the sheltered accommodation.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Can I just use this to ask George a question in the sense of pass it on that Philip Maynard, who's involved in the fun run next Sunday, said please could they use the bottom part of the lower part of the Village Hall car park for next Sunday's run as they did last year, please.
Okay.
And he said,
Why didn't he ask me?
Well, because he asked what your number was, and I said 777, and then I said, but I'll see you tonight.
Okay.
Can I
Fine,
help?
that's fine. Yeah.
Are you running, Paul?
No.
Running to a car park.
I'm sponsoring.
Is Philip running?
I think he'd be there with his yellow tabard with him.
He's not actually running.
No, it's not called ushering, is it? Marshalling.
Marshalling, that's it.
That's
My running days are over.
Marshall Maynard. Your running days are over. Well, surely not now they've repaired the entrance to the drive. You'll be able to get out.
Well, no, actually, just to let you know, there's a new
Diminishing
pothole
almost.
forming next to be further on.
Yes.
I spoke to Lee, she could say she couldn't make it today, and said is there anything, now that Jo is on maternity leave, we now have another chap who's covering Peter somebody or another, but I've got he's taken her phone number, so so I've got his email address as well. But she just wanted to report that Calm is now having meetings here.
Yeah.
So she's given me notes.
It is advertised in the
We are a
magazine.
local charity who are caring all together on Romney Marsh.
Oh, yes.
And
We are a local charity who aim to reduce loneliness and isolation in older adults. A place to chat over a cuppa for just £1.50 donation. So they're calling it Wittersham Meeting Point every first and third Thursday, 10 till 11:30 in the village hall. Come along and join us, we'd love to see you. But Lee has come along and there were 3 people I think came, but the hope is that they will pass
Might
word
increase.
round. She said it was very nice, the lady, whether it's Holly, I'm not sure, but she said she's very good, very nice, chatty.
Where's it based?
Here, in this room.
No, I know that all the meetings are here, are they? Not on the marsh.
They have one,
There.
Jo was always going to the one at Appledore when
Appledore.
she left here on a
Yeah,
Tuesday.
yeah, okay.
So, yes, caring.
It's in the morning on a Tuesday.
Supporting older people in rural areas.
Yeah.
Basically.
Thursday,
Is
first
studio
third
aware?
Thursday, isn't it?
Pardon?
Is Judy aware of
I would think so.
Yeah, yeah.
I think this
Yeah,
isn't new. I've had links.
Oh, okay.
There's
There's a
there,
thing
can you
down
see,
there.
look,
Oh,
I
sign
see.
It
up.
was advertised in the magazine.
Calm.
Yeah. No, I'm just about to put it on next
I wonder
door.
whether I've had a copy.
Do you not look at it?
I
Are
do,
you sure you've got a
I
copy?
always look at it, but I think
Loneliness, according to this
Yeah.
conference, is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's the same health impact.
Terrible.
Except no one can hear you.
Indeed.
The,
But what was good that we did hear of one lady who is lonely, and she came. So
good.
Yeah.
well,
I've dropped in at each one just to make sure they're okay, so there was a couple of people who did turn up.
the Monday lunch, that's say the third Monday of every month where they have the lunch next door and the coffee in here for. It's not really for old people, but it is in effect for
Yeah.
old people.
Do you mean the Saturday breakfast? It's all
No,
that?
no, Monday lunchtime.
Monday lunchtime.
Yep.
One Monday, third
Month.
Monday of every month.
Do they ever have the breakfast and the lunch on the same day?
No.
No.
There's one on Saturday and one on Thursday. Yeah, it's every month, every month, 12 times a year. And I've come now 3 times. I came this December when it was about 70 strong, I think. They're very good. I'm mentioning it because this month I do aim to come because Joan Gamblin urged me to. That's this Monday, and it's the fish and chip van comes, and everyone has fish and chips instead of the volunteers cooking the lunch. And I think they typically get about 50.
Yeah,
And
usually.
I'm on the
Yeah,
office.
yes. Everyone does the helping. It's about 50 come usually.
No, it's very good. It's
That's the regular number, is it?
yes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
£6 for a cup of coffee or tea,
Biscuits.
a 3-course lunch, a glass of what's the one that's not as expensive as Prosecco?
Lambrusco.
Lambrusco, yeah.
Bristol.
And another cup of tea, a bit of entertainment sometimes.
No, it's very
sweetness
good.
afterwards.
It's lovely to
It's
see.
very good, and the volunteers work fantastic. Really
Well-oiled machine.
yeah, they are brilliant.
It's
Okay.
just possible that coronavirus will have hit Wittersham by the time we have the next parish council meeting.
Oh, is that a qualified medical opinion?
Well, not really, but don't forget it has come to Brighton, hasn't it?
I know.
Well,
we had a visitor from Brighton today.
The question-
They've closed 2 general practices.
Oh, I know, I didn't think.
Right.
You haven't
The
been
question
to
is, has
Brighton,
the insurance run out?
On the
Has
same day.
your insurance run out now?
Order. One last piece of information, whatever it is, items of information from me. I went to the Ashford Visioning event on Monday last week, all day. Stakeholders from all and sundry in Ashford. There were about 70 or 80 people there. I was there as chairman of CALP. And my vice chairman could have been there as vice chairman of CALP, or he was there because he was a borough councillor. I think he could have been either. What I will do is, I'm just really giving you a heads up here, as they say. I sent out a note to Calc on it afterwards because I was representing them, and I will send that to you now, which gave an idea of what happened. I can't discuss it with Calc. I sent the note to them. I can't discuss it with them because next time the agenda's too full. I'm getting a feedback from them on the 17th of March, by which time they will have made some effort to know what came out of the day. They had consultants, it was pretty good. I won't go through the whole meeting. They also were showing there was a load of slides, but this is some of it. Sorry, I've got slides. This was the workbook they gave us. I can't give you that. We only got this in hard copy. We had to choose between 5 futures for Ashford, and it all got scored and all the rest of it, and they're now going to try and start writing it into a draft vision. So you'll get some of that from my note, some of it from the slides. The reason I wanted to just mention it was because if you look at just the slides, think what the devil are these all about, because you might then listen to it. It'll give you some idea of how things went, and once I've been to the feedback on the 17th, I'll be able to tell you a bit more.
Do the slides relate to us here at all, do you think? Or?
A bit. I mean, it could tie in with what Alan's just been talking about. The five possible futures for Ashford were Green Pioneer, which is what it sounds like.
How many pages are there?
About 10 here.
Would you want? Should I scan it and just email it?
Yeah.
Well, if it's
an easy way doing it.
Because otherwise, it sounds like your narrative.
I can send you the slides, but there's more in here on this particular part of the topic than there was on the
Well, why don't I
slide.
scan it and send it to you,
Yep.
right?
Send
And then
me
when
the
you
original
issue your
back.
narrative, send them together, because one without the other wouldn't make
Okay.
as much sense.
But this will come with the slides,
Yeah.
which have a bit of that in it, but there's more information there than
Yeah,
there is
this
on
is
the
quite
slides.
this is quite
Very
easy
good.
to read.
Thank you.
So I'll scan it and send it back to you, and then you can talk
Well
about it.
done.
Now,
Good
now
thinking.
Well
to
done.
me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've got it.
With the slides or
Yes,
with
I
that?
can't remember which, but I
You
didn't
were
do
as
it
keen
with
as I
it.
am.
She wanted to mention it
So
today.
we need the original back though.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure.
Okay, that's fine
You've got a
then.
vision in.
So I'll send you out
Country you come
the.
from, don't you?
I'll send you out my note and the slides.
Yeah.
Sarcasm to a fine
Anyone
art.
else got any other information?
Any other
No.
information
Okay,
you've got?
Thank you very much.